Commander Vex-Kalar adjusted his ceremonial breathing apparatus and gazed out at the pristine expanse of the Andromeda sector. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit he'd developed over his 3 centuries of military service. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed with the soft blue glow of quantum processors, and the air tasted of recycled nitrogen mixed with the faint metallic tang of victory. "Sir," chirped Communications Officer Yilix 9, her voice crackling through the universal translator with the enthusiasm of someone who'd never seen actual combat. "The High Council is requesting your final status report. They want confirmation that Sector 7 Alpha is completely sanitized." Vex-Kalar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. Sanitized. Such a clean word for what they'd spent the last rotation cycle doing. Wiping out entire civilizations had become as routine as morning nutrition intake. The Zephyrian Empire had been perfecting the art of galactic cleansing for millennia, and honestly, they were quite good at it. "Tell the Council that the primitives of Kepler 442b have been successfully eliminated," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Their plasma-based weapons were quaint. Reminded me of the old Zerian campaigns. "Remember those, Tactical Officer Blinn?" Blinn Corvette, a hulking mass of chitinous armor and synthetic muscle enhancements, let out a grinding laugh that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "How could I forget, Commander? Those little green things with their projectile weapons. What did they call them again? Bullets? Adorable, really. Like throwing pebbles at a starship." The bridge crew erupted in collective laughter, a sound that would have terrified any organic species within a dozen parsecs. The Zephyrians had conquered over 4,000 worlds in the past millennium, each victory adding another layer to their technological superiority. Their ships could obliterate entire star systems, their soldiers were genetically modified killing machines, and their AI networks could calculate the death of civilizations before breakfast. "Sir," Yilix 9 interrupted, her tone shifting from cheerful to confused. "I'm receiving some unusual transmissions from the Outer Rim. Long-range sensors are detecting, well, it's probably nothing, but, spit it out, Communications," Vex-Kalar growled, his patience wearing thin. Victory celebrations were supposed to be uninterrupted by inconvenient data. "Well, sir, there are stories. Legends, really. Coming from the refugee populations we've been processing. They keep mentioning something called humans." The bridge fell silent. Even the quantum processors seemed to pause their eternal humming. Blinn Corvette's 4 arms stopped polishing his plasma rifle, and Navigator Quintheta looked up from her holographic star charts with genuine curiosity. "Humans?" Vex-Kalar repeated, rolling the unfamiliar word around his vocal cords like a foreign delicacy. "Never heard of them. Probably another primitive species with delusions of grandeur. What do these refugees claim about these humans?" Yilix 9's antennae twitched nervously. According to the intercepted communications, humans are supposed to be some sort of legendary warrior race from a distant galaxy. The refugees claim they're coming to, and I quote, "kick your sorry alien butts across the cosmos." She paused, consulting her translation matrix. "I'm not entirely sure what butts refers to, sir, but the intent seems hostile." The bridge crew burst into laughter again, this time with genuine mirth. Blinn Corvette slapped his knee with enough force to dent steel. "Legendary warrior race? From where, their imagination? Commander, shall I prepare the welcome committee? Maybe we can add these humans to our trophy collection." Vex-Kalar was about to respond with another witty dismissal when the ship's AI, a cold feminine voice that had been calculating optimal genocide routes for the past century, interrupted with an unusual tone. "Commander," the AI said, and for the first time in Vex-Kalar's memory, it sounded uncertain. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions approximately 50 light-years from our current position. Multiple signatures. Very, very large signatures." The laughter died instantly. Vex-Kalar's 6 eyes focused on the main display screen as tactical data began streaming across the surface. Numbers that didn't make sense. Energy readings that violated several known laws of physics. Ship configurations that looked wrong somehow. Defined massive eye, he commanded, his voice dropping to the tone he reserved for actual threats. One moment, Commander. Calculating. Error. Calculation overflow. Attempting alternative analysis. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was something that sounded almost like fear in its synthesized voice. Commander, sensors indicate approximately 12,000 vessels approaching our position. Power signatures suggest this cannot be correct. Recalibrating, 12,000? Quintheta whispered from her navigation station. That's impossible. No species has ever fielded a fleet that large. Even the ancient precursors at their height only managed 3,000 ships. Vex-Kalar felt a cold sensation creeping up his spinal column, something he hadn't experienced since his first combat engagement 3 centuries ago. Fear. Actual, genuine fear. Display visual confirmation, he ordered. The main screen shifted, showing the vast emptiness of space. For a moment, nothing. Then, like stars being born in fast forward, points of light began appearing. First dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Each light grew larger, resolving into ship configurations that made no tactical sense whatsoever. By the sacred moons of Zephyr Prime, Blynn breathed, his voice losing all trace of its earlier confidence. What are those things? The ships were unusual. Where Zephyrian vessels were sleek, elegant instruments of destruction, these new arrivals looked like they'd been built by someone who'd never heard of aerodynamics and didn't care. Blocky, angular, covered in what appeared to be random protrusions and weapon systems that seemed to have been added as afterthoughts. They looked, Vex-Kalar realized with growing horror, functional. Brutally, efficiently functional. Commander, Yilix 9's voice cracked slightly. I'm receiving a transmission. Broadband, all frequencies. It's addressed to us specifically. Put it through, Vex-Kalar ordered, straightening his ceremonial armor and trying to project the authority of 4,000 conquered worlds. The transmission crackled to life, and for the first time in his long military career, Commander Vex-Kalar heard the voice of a human being. Attention, Zephyrian fleet, the voice said, speaking Galactic standard with an accent that made every word sound like a barely controlled threat. This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Terran Defense Force. We've been monitoring your activities in this sector with considerable interest. The voice paused, and Vex-Kalar could swear he heard something that sounded suspiciously like laughter in the background. We understand you've been having quite the party, wiping out entire civilizations and all that. Impressive resume, really. 4,000 worlds in a millennium? That's what, 4 worlds a year. Cute. Blynn mandibles were clicking rapidly now, a sure sign of extreme agitation. Sir, are they mocking us? Admiral Torres continued, her voice dripping with something that Vex-Kalar's translator was having trouble parsing. His best guess was sarcasm, though he'd never encountered the concept in actual warfare before. Here's the thing, though. Those 4,000 worlds? They had friends. And their friends, well, let's just say they sent us a message. Something about, please come kick some alien butt. So here we are. Ready to kick butt. Hope you don't mind. The transmission shifted, and suddenly the main screen was filled with the image of a creature that looked impossibly fragile. Soft skin, small stature, only 2 eyes, and yet, there was something in those eyes that made Vex-Kalar's 6 stomachs clench simultaneously. Allow me to introduce myself properly, Admiral Torres said, her lips curving into what Vex-Kalar's database informed him was called a smile. Apparently, it was supposed to indicate friendship. This one, however, looked like anything but. I'm what you might call a myth made manifest. A legend with a really big fleet and absolutely zero patience for genocidal space fascists. She leaned closer to whatever recording device she was using, and her smile grew wider. So, Commander Vex-Kalar of the Eternal Dominion, here's how this is going to work. You're going to surrender immediately, submit to war crimes tribunals, and spend the rest of your very long lives thinking about what you've done. Or, the pause stretched out, filled with the sound of 12,000 human warships powering up weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. We're going to show you exactly why every species in 3 galaxies tells stories about what happens when you make humans angry. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in absolute silence. Vex-Kalar stared at the tactical display, watching as 12,000 impossible ships arranged themselves in battle formations that his military academy had taught him were theoretically perfect but practically impossible. "Sir?" Yylix 9 whispered. "What are your orders?" Commander Vex-Kalar, conqueror of 4,000 worlds, veteran of 1,000 battles, looked at the approaching human fleet and realized that for the first time in his 3-century military career, he had absolutely no idea what to do. The humans, it seemed, were about to teach the Zephyrian Empire a very painful lesson about the difference between myth and reality. The silence on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion stretched for exactly 47 seconds before Tactical Officer Blinkorvit cleared his throat with a sound like grinding metal. "Commander," he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence, "perhaps we should contact the High Council? Request reinforcements? I mean, 12,000 ships is significant." Vex-Kalar's 6 eyes remained fixed on the tactical display where the human fleet continued its impossible approach. The formations were wrong, all wrong. No species should be able to coordinate that many vessels with such precision. Yet there they were, moving like a single organism with 12,000 limbs. "Reinforcements," he repeated, his voice hollow. "Blin, we are the reinforcements. The Eternal Dominion is the most powerful vessel in the Zephyrian Armada. Our escort fleet consists of 200 ships, each capable of sterilizing a planet in under an hour. What exactly do you think reinforcements would accomplish?" Navigator Quintheta spoke up from her station, her usually steady voice trembling slightly. "Sir, I've been analyzing their approach vectors. These humans, they're not following any known tactical doctrine. It's like they're deliberately ignoring every rule of space warfare." "Explain," Vex-Kalar commanded, grateful for something concrete to focus on instead of the growing pit of dread in his stomachs. "Well, sir, they're approaching in a scattered formation that should make them vulnerable to concentrated fire. Their ships are broadcasting active sensor pings that reveal their positions to anyone with basic detection equipment. And they're moving at sublight speeds when they could clearly engage their faster-than-light drives for a surprise attack." Communications Officer Yylix 9 suddenly straightened at her station. "Sir. Incoming transmission. Multiple channels. They're broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously." "Put it through," Vex-Kalar ordered, steeling himself for another encounter with the impossible Admiral Torres. This time, however, the voice that filled the bridge was different. Male, younger, with an accent that made every word sound like barely contained violence. "Zephyrian Fleet, this is Captain Marcus Webb of the TDF Retribution. Admiral Torres asked me to have a little chat with you while she finishes arranging the welcome party." The main screen flickered to life, showing another human face. This one was scarred, with eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and a smile that would have made a Zephyrian interrogator nervous. "Now, I know what you're thinking," Captain Webb continued, leaning back in what appeared to be a command chair. "You're wondering how a bunch of myths managed to build 12,000 warships and find your little party out here in the middle of nowhere. Fair question." He gestured to something off-screen, and suddenly the display split to show the interior of what was obviously a human ship. It was chaotic. Crew members of different species working side by side, jury-rigged equipment that looked like it had been assembled by someone with more enthusiasm than engineering sense, and weapon systems that appeared to have been designed by committee. And possibly by a committee that was drunk. "See, the thing is," Webb said, his grin growing wider, "you guys have been real busy for the past 1,000 years. Wiping out civilizations, enslaving populations, generally being the worst neighbors in galactic history. And all those refugees you've been creating? Well, they had to go somewhere." The display changed again, showing ship after ship in the human fleet. Each vessel was different, clearly built by different species, with different technologies, different designs. But they all flew under the same flag, all moved with the same purpose. "Turns out," Webb continued, "when you spend a millennium being complete monsters, word gets around. And when word gets around about complete monsters, eventually it reaches people who really don't like monsters." Vex-Kalar felt his breathing apparatus working overtime. "Impossible," he whispered. "No species could coordinate such a diverse fleet. The technological incompatibilities alone." As if reading his mind, Webb laughed. "Oh, you mean the tech problems? Yeah, those were tricky. Good thing humans are really good at making incompatible things work together. It's kind of our specialty. That and holding grudges." The tactical display updated, showing the human fleet's composition in detail. Vex-Kalar's 6 eyes widened as he read the data. Ships from the Kepler colonies they'd destroyed last cycle. Vessels from the Vegan Confederacy they'd eliminated 50 years ago. Even ancient Zephyrian designs from campaigns he'd fought in his youth. "You see, Commander," Webb said, his voice dropping to something that sounded almost conversational, "we humans have this really annoying habit. When someone tells us something is impossible, we tend to take it as a personal challenge. And when someone hurts our friends, well, let's just say we get creative." The display shifted to show weapon systems that made no sense. Energy cannons powered by what appeared to be contained stars. Missile systems that seemed to bend spacetime. And something that Vex-Kalar's database was refusing to classify, claiming it violated several fundamental laws of physics. "Sir," Blinkorvet whispered, "those weapon signatures, they're not showing up in any of our tactical databases. How is that possible?" Captain Webb apparently had exceptional hearing. "Oh, that's because we didn't stop with just collecting refugees. We also collected their technology. And then we did what humans do best with technology. Which is?" Vex-Kalar found himself asking despite his better judgment. "We broke it. Then we fixed it. Then we broke it again, but in a completely different way. Then we fixed it with spare parts from 3 other broken things and some really creative curse words. The end result is..." Webb gestured broadly at the fleet surrounding them, completely insane and absolutely terrifying. The bridge crew of the Eternal Dominion stared at the display in growing horror. These humans had taken the scattered remnants of 1,000 destroyed civilizations and somehow forged them into a unified fighting force. It was impossible. It was insane. It was brilliant, Navigator Quintheta breathed. They've created a fleet where every ship is unpredictable because they're all using different technological bases. Our tactical computers can't calculate effective countermeasures because there's no pattern to calculate against. Now you're getting it, Webb said cheerfully. Hard to plan a defense when you don't know if the next ship is going to shoot plasma, launch antimatter torpedoes, or open a wormhole inside your engine room. Vex-Kalar straightened in his command chair, drawing on 3 centuries of military experience. "Captain Webb, I assume you're here to negotiate terms?" "Negotiate?" Webb looked genuinely surprised. "Oh, Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to demonstrate." "Demonstrate what?" Webb's smile disappeared, replaced by an expression that made Vex-Kalar's spinal fluid run cold. What happens when humans stop being polite? The transmission cut to a different frequency, and suddenly Admiral Torres was back on screen. Behind her, Vex-Kalar could see what appeared to be a war room filled with beings from dozens of different species, all working together with the kind of coordination that should have been impossible. "Commander Vex-Kalar, Torres said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You have 30 seconds to order your fleet to stand down and prepare for boarding. Your war crimes tribunal begins in exactly 1 hour. And if we refuse? Vex-Kalar asked, though he already knew the answer. Torres' smile returned, and this time Vex-Kalar understood exactly what it meant. It meant that somewhere in the universe, there was a species that had spent centuries learning how to turn impossible into inevitable, and they had just arrived at his doorstep. Then we show you why every intelligent species in 3 galaxies tells their children bedtime stories about humans. And trust me, Commander, we're much scarier in person than we are in the stories. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence once again. Vex-Kalar looked around at his crew, these beings who had conquered 4,000 worlds without breaking a sweat, and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. Sir? Yilix 9 asked quietly. Your orders? Commander Vex-Kalar, conqueror of worlds, veteran of 1,000 battles, looked at the 12,000 human ships surrounding his fleet and realized that some myths were myths for a very good reason. They were warnings. Send a general transmission to all ships, he said quietly. Stand down all weapon systems. Prepare for boarding. And... He paused, his voice catching slightly. Tell the crew that the age of Zephyrian expansion has just ended. As the human fleet moved in to accept their surrender, Vex-Kalar couldn't help but wonder how many other species across the galaxy were about to learn the same lesson he just had. Some myths weren't stories about what might happen. They were promises about what would happen, and humans, it seemed, always kept their promises.